to order on mental health parity enhancement for House Bill 520. I'm going to turn it over to my subcommittee chair lady, Senator Chair Lady.
Mr. Chair. We heard a lot of public testimony earlier this week on House Bill 520. There is a substitute bill pending that will address many issues that were raised, and we'll be working with the substitute over the next week. We need to move the bill to the full committee, and since the committee members will want to fully read the bill before voting on it, my recommendation is that our subcommittee moves the bill forward without a recommendation, and I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, appreciate the work and continuing work on the bill. A lot of work's being done, and with that, I'd like to make a motion to move 520 to full committee without recommendation.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. This is subcommittee. Thank you. Yeah,
Yes,
you're on it, yeah.
It is unanimous subcommittee.
Thank you.
Okay.
With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lady. So just for clarification, that was the subcommittee reporting with no recommendation, but there is a substitute, and we're going to have it for the full committee, and we're going to continue to work with the interested parties. Thank you so much. Now, we're in the full committee, and we're hearing House Bill 383. Representative Reeves, so you are welcome to be at the podium. How about that? Okay.
Thank you.
And Representative Reeves, we're on, let's make sure we're on the right LC.
Chairman Watson, I have LC 491389S. It's the same version that passed the House.
There we go. Same version that passed the House. We like to hear that. And the floor.
Chairman Watson and members of the committee, I'm proud to present to you House Bill 383. This bill, the Safer Hospitals Act, will allow you to protect those who care for us at the hospital. It has two main components. The first component is it allows all hospitals to set up a hospital campus police department, just like colleges do, just like the Ports Authority does, and like several colleges or hospitals already have the opportunity to do either through higher ed or through a grandfathered legal status that they have from decades ago. The second component puts hospital employees outside of the emergency room on par with hospital emergency workers, with teachers, with transit drivers, with paramedics, with law enforcement. In cases where they are attacked, it has special protection for hospital workers. That's to make sure that people who are performing duties at the hospital, whether they're in the emergency room or on other parts of the hospital campus performing health care, are fully protected under Georgia law, just like several other categories of employees. The Georgia Chamber of Commerce has sent a letter of support, which I think you have. I have Mike Hodges, not to be confused with Senator Mike Hodges, but Mike Hodges with Piedmont Healthcare, who could answer questions about hospital security needs and issues. I know the nurses are supportive. The Georgia Sheriff's Association made some revisions to the bill on the House side and are supportive. This has been a bill that broadened. Originally, it was nonprofit hospitals in Atlanta who requested this, but we had a request from hospitals across the state to broaden it to allow them to do the same thing, and we included them in the bill that is before you. So just like Mercer University can set up a campus police department, hospital campuses can set up their post-certified hospital security force and protect hospital employees the same as several other categories of essential workers like teachers and paramedics. And with that, I will yield for questions. I would like to mention we did work with the criminal defense lawyers on some technical issues. They do have a bigger picture philosophical objection to enhanced penalties like with teachers and law enforcement and things like that, but there is precedent. The hospital employees in the emergency room are already protected. This just lets the other hospital workers get protected like other categories of employees are. I would appreciate your favorable consideration of House Bill 383, the Safer Hospitals Bill.
Thank you, Representative Reeves. We do have questions from the committee. I got tagged here by my subcommittee chairman. Since I burdened her, I will let her go first.
Thank you, Representative Reeves. You may or may not know, since you just got down here, that we did a study committee on this not that long ago and got a lot of good input from Mr. Hodges and others. So is this your first bill in front of the Senate committee?
It is in this
what
committee.
I
I was
thought.
over in Judiciary.
So then I have some more questions for you.
All right.
If I was new, I'd say no.
I know, although I fully support what you're trying to do, but I have two questions for you. First of all, if this is not prohibited under current law, why do we need to explicitly say that it is allowed if we're already doing it? That's question one. I'll
Sure.
go ahead and ask the other one too. Why did you choose to restrict this to just hospitals and not other places where healthcare is delivered?
Sure. First of all, Mr. Hodges definitely appreciated the leadership that you had on that study committee, and he participated. He's glad to see you in person. I know that was a virtual committee during COVID to a large extent, but this bill was one product. Protecting healthcare workers was something that study committee did. Piedmont Healthcare took the lead on this, and so hospital security is a big need. They have a lot of employees. Northside has a lot of employees. Hospital security is a top priority. When it got beyond that, I know there's been, some examination of having, doctors' offices or other centers protected, but this is a safer hospitals bill. That could perhaps be a bill for, a follow-up bill to examine all the ramifications of going outside hospital campuses. But the well-defined hospital campus of property that a hospital owns or leases, the streets and sidewalks that connect their campus, 100 yards from there where they could call for backup outside of there. We had to get a legal definition of it. Now, it is there. Nonprofit hospitals and community hospitals don't have the legal ability to hire post-certified officers who can carry a gun, make an arrest presently. You have Emory and some schools that have, a college campus security, which is authorized by law. You also have a hospital in Macon that's grandfathered in and having their post-certified police force. But right now, there are a large number of hospitals that do not have the legal ability to have post-certified officers on their campus. So that's what this bill allows.
I'll think of some more questions before you get to the floor.
Thank you.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I'm looking at section 3 and 4 where you have the enhanced penalties for hospital, anybody who's charged with aggravated assault. My experience as an EMT is that a part of being in an emergency room means that you might have people who are aggressive because of psychotic breaks, chemicals, any number of things that are medical conditions. And so how do we ensure that a person who is genuinely sick and strikes out because they're confused and they don't, you're trying to stick a needle in their arm and they're confused or they swipe out, how do we make sure that those kinds of patients don't get caught up in these kinds of charges?
I think having a hospital security force who is trained and employed by the hospital, that would provide more sophistication on patient issues. They look at these people as patients rather than people on the street. The status quo right now is that hospitals hire their local police department employees on a moonlighting basis, or they hire private security who are not post-certified officers. Having a post-certified officer who has a level of training, who then is an employee of the hospital and has sophistication in dealing with patients, that's what this bill would promote. Additionally, as an EMT and a paramedic, you have that legal protection. And if you're in the emergency room, you have legal protection. However, the thousands of other hospital employees and doctors who are delivering health care around the hospital currently are not covered like EMTs and emergency room workers are. This bill would broaden it out to all the hospital health care delivery workers.
Any other questions from the committee? Senator Sassler.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I got a have a serious questions. Appreciate the problem you're looking to solve. I think it's a good problem. I just have some questions that I think are important technical questions, but with respect to, we've got, nonprofits or for-profit hospitals that in essence their employees are being given police powers to. We've got campuses that do that, universities. What other private entities in the state have full police powers and they're privately owned? And they may be. I just don't. It's an honest question.
Higher Ed, Georgia Ports Authority, railroads, those are 3 that we identified in the course of drafting the bill. And then hospitals that do have a higher ed tie, like Emory and some others. And then there are some grandfathered hospitals. The one in Macon, someone came and testified in the House committee. They have a police force, or they have the ability to do that. But
Do they have, I mean, but we're we're giving them full, as I understand, it's full police powers.
correct.
So if, I know our public universities do, and I know Emory and them, they've got do those private university forces, how do they manage this issue of arrest powers and handing them over to law enforcement, management of evidence? It's not just the person themselves, it's evidentiary chain and all that stuff, and the liability for that. How's that done today?
Currently, private universities can have post-certified officers and create their own police department. This bill would allow that to happen at all hospitals and not just the ones that are tied to higher ed. And they are post-certified officers, and then the hospital can apply and get on that list of post-certified entities that can have the officers there, and they can organize it on their own dime and not at taxpayer expense.
Thank you, Senator Setzer. Any other questions from the committee? All right, I don't see any further questions, so if we can go to testimony. We had 3 people to sign up, Tim Kibler, Emily Strongwater, and Jill Travis, and Terry Sullivan. Just if y'all can just keep in mind that we do have 4 bills, and you can waive if you want to say you support. All right. So just for the record, Mr. Kibler, Georgia Alliance is community hospitals is in support, and he waives. Thank you, Mr. Kibler. And then we have the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. I am sorry that Chairman Strickland is not able to be here, because I know y'all are very familiar with him, but I'll do my best in trying to fill in for him. He is much smoother than I am, but y'all have the floor there. Thank you.
It's really unusual to be in this setting. My name is Jill Travis. With the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. I'm used to seeing many of you in other settings and not this one. I want to say how much I appreciate Representative Reeves working with us on this bill. It's came a long ways from it first getting introduced. Chairman Kirkpatrick, you might recognize Representative Reeves from his days working in the House Judiciary Committee. So he definitely knows how to run the traps. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Emily Strongwater. I may have a closing remark. We're very mindful. We're going to be very short with our testimony.
Good afternoon. Representative Reeves already previewed all of you about our issue with the bill, and that's just this sort of what we see as needless classification of a new type of victim. It seems to be ever expansive. Judicial authority already has the discretion to sentence people based off aggravated and mitigating circumstances. And to the committee member's point, sometimes there are mitigating circumstances, especially in hospital and healthcare situations, that a judge can take into consideration in the enhanced sentencing and classification we just don't see as necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Strongwater. Any questions for the
I had one last thing to add that I mentioned when this bill was heard in Health. I held up my phone because I'd recently traveled and went through security. And I noticed that signs that when you, at the airport I happened to be at, it had these signs like, by penalty of law, no threats, no physical harm, no something else, that if you do that, you're subject to like a penalty of $13,910. And I would just, it would seem a weird amount, but whatever federal law allows, I would just suggest that perhaps right now, the hospital today, before this bill passed, could put up a sign that says, you commit aggravated assault or aggravated battery against one of our nurses, you're subject to a 20-year penalty and up to a $100,000 fine. And to the extent that our visual cues help us, that might be a solution. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Terry Sullivan, Georgia Nurses Association. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to thank Representative Reeves for bringing this bill to fruition for us. My name's Terry Sullivan, and I represent the Georgia Nurses Association. I'm an emergency room nurse, and I'd like to share some facts with you. A study was conducted in 2019 by the American Nurses Association showing that 1 in 4 nurses have been assaulted at work. I am one of those statistics. I took care of a patient whose chief complaint was, quote, "I need comfort." He was agitated by how long he had to wait to get a psychiatric bed because they didn't want to admit him. He came out of the room, punched me in the chest, proceeded to run to the nurse's station, grab his physician amongst many, many people that were at the nurse's station by the shirt, raise up his fist, getting ready to punch the doctor by name, by date. This is when you said so-and-so was going to be coming to my room, completely alert-oriented and with his faculties. I think one of the things that was addressed is what is the difference between hospitals and other places. EMTALA says we can't turn anybody away. So if people are acting out regularly at the Walmart, they can get arrested and they can get banned from ever coming back to a Walmart. If people are acting out in their primary care office, those providers can say, you're no longer allowed to be seen by this practice. Hospitals can never, nor should we, not suggesting that we should, but hospitals can never turn anyone away. I think that is a very delineating point that I would like to ensure that we don't forget. People have tried to help us in our plight. We do have signs up all over the hospital saying that it's a felony charge and that we don't tolerate violence against healthcare workers. It still happens regularly. And ironically, it happens as much with visitors and family members as it does with patients striking the staff. OSHA has been charged with trying to help us, and they had CPL 0201-058 in 2017, which presented a general duty clause to decrease hazards, and that was in their guidelines. But that's advisory only. They request that entities put measures in place to help the staff. In 2022, the Joint Commission issued workplace violence prevention requirements for accreditation. Again, these are more theories that you have to have policies, but there is no enactment of what can be done or what has to be done. Currently, the federal government has legislation pending to try to help us. H.R. 1195 passed the House April 16th of 21 and is stalled in the Senate. That bill is looking to require OSHA to develop an action plan for how to manage assaults in healthcare facilities. That bill is stalled in the Senate. In the meantime, nurses are leaving the bedside. The NIH's data from 2022 shows that we currently have a 1 million nurse shortage due to attrition and nurses leaving the bedside, and that's only projected to get worse.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. I really appreciate that. Do we have any questions for Ms. Sullivan? And I really appreciate what you do in your job, and I know, it can be dangerous, and that's unfortunate, not acceptable. You're still responsible for your behavior. No questions from the committee? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Senator Lucas.
We don't have a law. Ever since I was a kid, the Megan Hospital, I always had policemen. And so
You're exactly right. That is the exception, right?
I didn't know it was.
Representative Reeves?
so what I'm saying, we don't have a law where hospitals can set up their own police force with certified, post-certified people.
Representative Reeves, do you mind addressing that?
Thank you. And Senator Lucas is right. What's now Atrium Healthcare, I think it was a medical center when I was at Mercer, they are grandfathered in. They have a good, robust security force of post-certified officers. But down in southwest Georgia, northeast Georgia, middle Georgia, other hospitals don't have the ability to have post-certified officers there. And then those large nonprofits in Atlanta, Northside, Piedmont, they don't have that ability. So this bill would give of nonprofit hospitals, small town, mid-town, middle-sized hospitals.
I think you got that answer. Any other questions there? Don't mean to cut you off, but I guess I did. So, and I'll entertain a motion now.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to pass.
And I get a second from Chairman Huffstetler. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, so Representative Reeves, I think that I had been asked to carry that, and I'm happy to do it for you. Thank you. Appreciate that. We're at House Bill 416. Representative Wilcox. Did I say Wilcox? I am sorry.
I've gotten mail for worse.
You know, trying to do too many things at one time. I apologize. All righty, now that I'm embarrassed, the floor is yours.
No,
House Bill
the embarrassment is
416.
mine, I promise. I, of course, come to bring y'all House Bill 416. I am working off of LC 339363 as it passed the House. And I will just go right into it. This bill authorizes, but certainly does not require, that a qualified pharmacy technician can administer certain vaccines to those under 18 years of age and older, and at the discretion and supervision of a licensed pharmacist. The bill that you see before you today is really a work, it represents over 2 years of work on this particular bill. Of course, during the pandemic, pharmacy technicians were licensed, or were actually not licensed, they were authorized to start giving vaccines. But now that the federal emergency is going to be expiring on May 11th, this bill really becomes necessary because these technicians are providing a valuable resource in what has become more of a workforce issue, as well as a great service to the public. And if you look at the legislation itself, of course, it does put some guardrails around this that were not previously required under the federal emergency. These pharmacy technicians will be required to undergo a training course by the Accreditation Council for Pharmacy Education that includes hands-on injection techniques, recognition of the treatment of emergency reaction to vaccines. They also have to hold a current certification in basic cardiac life support, and they have to complete a minimum of 2 hours of training on immunizations related to continuing pharmacy education. This is the same training currently required under the PrEP Federal Act. The bill is limited in scope. Only vaccines included on the adult immunization schedule recommended by the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices of the CDC will be allowed to be administered, which includes influenza, Tdap, MMR, COVID-19, and others. And vaccines can only be administered to adults 18 years and older, and not any children. The Georgia, of course, Food Industry Association, the Georgia Pharmacy Association, the Georgia Retailers all support this bill. And we do have some guests, if you'd like to hear from them today. We have Leanne Jacobson, who's the supervisor of over 34 pharmacies in the Northwest Quadrant. And we also have Kat Florence, who's in government relations with Publix, if you would like to hear from them as well. But that is the bill, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Questions from the committee? Senator Hodges. Yes,
Thank you,
you're
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just one question. What does the word administer mean? Does it mean stick me in the arm and press the plunger, or does it also mean prepare the dosage?
And I would let the pharmacist, of course, that's their expertise. So I'm going to let.
If you wouldn't mind going to the podium and identifying yourself, though I know she introduced you already. But
Sure. My name's Leanne Jacobson from Publix Pharmacies. I am a licensed pharmacist myself. Administration in the application of this bill would mean to actually inject and press the plunger and administer the dose. Prior to that being what's transpiring, the prescription itself or the immunization would have to be inputted into the pharmacy, passed through a pharmacist's check to make sure that they are eligible and that the dose is appropriate, and final verification that the product that is being processed is in fact the immunization that is going to be administered.
And I think they have to check GRITS. And now that your test question is, what does GRITS stand for? All right, it's in the bill, Georgia Registry Immunization Transactions and Services. So, and that's ever so important because what she does when she enters it into GRITS, and the history of that is it actually was started by pediatricians in Savannah, Georgia, and they were having children going from one practice to another. They didn't know what they were immunized with, so they did a pilot study there. It spread to Georgia and has actually spread to the rest of the United States. So when I log on and I click a space on my electronic health record, I can see your vaccines, what you have actually been vaccinated. Because, people lose those vaccination cards and people don't remember if they've been vaccinated. And so if the pharmacist enters it or my medical assistant enters it, that's there. That's way more information you probably wanted to know, but any other questions from the committee? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, I support the practice of technicians being trained to do this. But I would say, I'm just going to say this because it's an opportunity to say it. I have a pharmacist friend from my district who actually came to the Capitol and objected to pharmacists being able to give vaccines 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. Because even as a practicing pharmacist with 30 years of experience in commercial pharmacy, she said her contention was we're not trained to do this, and there's definitely not the facilities to do it. There's a chair there by the window. But to administer vaccines, you're supposed to lay down if you have an episode, a place to do that. I support your bill, but I just wanted to say broadly, I haven't seen since that happened that other than places that have minute clinics where there's a place to lay down in a gurney, I've not seen. I mean, even my own pharmacy where I go where I go pick up things for our family, there's really no place if you get jabbed to lay down. And if you have a sort of adverse reaction, I don't know that that's being universally done across the state.
Well, and I appreciate your concern, and I would say that first of all, this is not a mandate in any way, and certainly, if you are not comfortable going and getting a shot at your pharmacy, we do have county. We have county places where you can go and get those shots. There's plenty of other places to get vaccinations at your pediatrician's office, at your internist office. So I think this is not a mandate in any way, shape, or form.
It's not. And again, and I said I support the bill. I just wanted to say, let it be said during the legislative hearings, there was at least one legislator that raised the question: are we really honestly furnishing the facilities to do this right? I support it. I just, and continue to support it, I just want it to be said, there was that was sort of fended off as an issue 6 or 7 or 8 years ago when we started having pharmacists administer vaccines. I don't think it's really changed. I just want to raise that as an issue. So.
Well, and I would say also that, they do have to have, like I said, the education under the PrEP Act. They have to be trained in cardiac life support, and they have to also be trained in techniques for treatment of emergency reaction to vaccines. So I do think there's some guardrails around that.
Your point's taken. Thank you. Any other questions for the committee? And we have a couple people who wanted to testify. Christy Miner, David Fadul, and Bethany Scherer. Y'all would be in the chute. We're going to try to limit these to a couple minutes because I apologize. We got 2 more bills. So, are you Ms. Miner?
I am.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Watson, members of the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. My name is Christy Miner. I'm from Cobb County, Roswell, and I'm here to speak in opposition of HB 1416. Despite what we've been deceived to believe, vaccines are not a one-size-fits-all. Like all medications, there are risks and benefits that should be discussed with a doctor before receiving. Authorizing a pharmacy technician to administer vaccines is flat out unsafe. I mean, we heard a lot of the few concerns we did hear raised were on reactionary, but there's no mention of the need for prevention. And that starts with the doctor-patient relationship, and that discussion needs to be had. Adults, children, everybody, what is your family history, risks and benefits? This is just dangerous. So I speak in opposition. Mr. Chair, I know you're being pressed for time, but the Lord has been sharing with me, speaking to me on a short chapter in Numbers. With your permission, I would like to read from the Word of God. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you. So I am reading Numbers 13, verses 25 through 33, and I'm reading from the King James Version. And they returned from searching the land after 40 days, and they went out and came to Moses and to Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran and Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and unto the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, We came unto the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses, and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land, which they had searched unto the children of Israel,
Thank
saying,
you, Ms. Minor. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. We all need that, that's for sure. Mr. David Fadul, and then Bethany shares in the chute. Hey, Mr. Introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and welcome to the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman and the committee for having me today. I realize y'all put this one under the rug earlier, but, I speak for Georgia when I say that we are extremely disappointed with the committee's willingness to advance the private-public partnership of Representative Jones and House Bill 520 and advance him enabling and picking the pockets so bureaucrats can go and pick people's brains and pick who is a risk. It's an egregious conflict of interest that Representative Jones has, and it does not fit with the public service mission of Georgia at all, which derives from God, not government. So I ask you all to please carefully reconsider this when you all are revisiting the egregious act which you guys swept under the rug earlier, which is House Bill 520. Thank you all very much for your time.
We appreciate that. Of course, we're on House Bill 416, thank you, Mr. Fadul. Bethany Scherer.
Hi, thank you. This is Bethany Scherer with Medical Association of Georgia. We want to thank Representative Silcox, the Georgia Food Industry Association, and the Georgia Retail Association for working with us so diligently on this bill. When this started, we had some concerns that have definitely been allayed as we've gone through this process. In Georgia, our vaccines given by a pharmacist go through a protocol agreement with a physician, so the pharmacist works through a protocol agreement. So the prescription is actually like a standing order when you're getting a vaccine in a pharmacy. So just want to make sure that we kind of understand how that works. And so it was very important to us that we don't erode that physician relationship to the vaccine process, and make sure that for those under the age of 18 that we're making sure that they're going to their pediatrician on a regular basis and continuing that process through, as they have a number of different ways that you can work through the schedule. So we want to make sure that patients are staying on that schedule, especially under the age of 18. So thank you, and I would say at this point that we're neutral on the bill, but we really do appreciate everyone's work on it.
You still have 50 seconds. Any questions for Ms. Scherer? Okay, thank you. No one else signed up, and I'll be happy to entertain move do pass. Second, further discussion. You don't want to kill your bill, I presume. So, Representative Silcox, any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. It looks like it is unanimous, okay.
Thank you. And Leader Hatchett will be carrying the bill.
Oh, yeah, someone who didn't show up today. Is that who you're getting to carry it?
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
I got you, okay. Leader Hatchett, no show, gets it, I got you, okay, all right. Okay, so we're gonna move along. 453. Representative Hilton, I think I pronounced that correctly, and the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be remiss, I saw a certain scoreboard out there, so I just want to let the committee know. In House Education today, we passed 4 Senate bills, and healthcare this afternoon, we passed 3 more. So, yes,
that's
plus
So,
7.
so y'all may have done 20% of the work now, so y'all getting there. You're getting
Doing
there.
our part,
Doing
in
your
the,
part.
at least in the committee process. So, just wanted to mention that. Also wanted to mention I carried SB 3 in the House, which successfully passed one of the Lieutenant Governor's priority bills.
You're just scoring points, not the,
Yes.
not the distinguished rules chairs here or anything, but I get it, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, honored to present to you House Bill 453. I think we can all agree that our EMS and ambulance providers are currently understaffed and overworked, especially coming out of the COVID crisis and pandemic. And really, our EMS and ambulance providers are the front line of our healthcare system. They are the ones that come to you first, and you interact with them. And we need them to be at their best and brightest and fully staffed. And so what House Bill 453 does, it eliminates a ambulance provider fee that's been paid for the better part of 20 years here in Georgia. The original intent of the fee was to work as a provider fee where they would receive back in return higher Medicaid reimbursement rates. Unfortunately, the state has not lived up to our end of the bargain, and our ambulance companies have not been receiving those higher reimbursement rates, and so we're coming to strike that fee and return nearly $4 million back to really our small businesses across the state in terms of our ambulance providers.
Questions from Chair Lady? Yes, Kirkpatrick.
Representative, isn't it true that our EMS and ambulance companies in general are having a really difficult time filling all of their positions at the current time?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, there's prices on wages, and also there's still, supply chain issues out there. And so, as I said in my opening comments, these are folks we want at their fully staffed and best and brightest. And so, yeah, this will put valuable resources back in their pockets to hire the best and brightest to serve us and Georgians' needs, healthcare needs. Yeah.
My question is, all the EMS folks pay a license fee. Are you saying this has something to do with them hiring folks?
Run that by me again now, did you?
Yeah, so currently they're paying
Okay.
currently they're paying $2,500 fee per ambulance, $1,400 per company.
Okay, did that answer your question?
Well, it halfway answered.
Halfway answered it. Can we get the other half? Where are we there? All right, so help me understand it then. So it's $2,500 per company or $1,400 per ambulance? Is
No,
that- Of course, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I apologize. I got that backwards. It's $2,500 per ambulance service, $2,500 per company, $1,400 per ambulance.
And that's addition, that's not mutually, those are additional.
Correct.
So if they
Correct.
got a bunch of ambulances, and they're gonna be paying a lot of fees, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you've got 10 ambulances, you're paying $14,000.
Okay.
All right.
Did that prompt some more questions
no.
there, Senator Lucas?
Then, let me ask this question. Where does the money go now that the fee is?
That's a good question. I think I understand this. This goes to draw down money as hospitals are paying for the Indigent Care Trust Fund, or what is also called disproportionate share.
Yeah. Why would we change that?
Well, let's ask the author that.
So currently that fund is oversubscribed in the budget, meaning that we're taking in more than we budgeted for. And so while we are removing this fee, net that fund is still ahead of where it's anticipated to be.
So so it is, and as a matter of fact, we're reducing reimbursement relating to the DPP, Direct Payment Plan. Remember, we talked about that? MCG Grady made whole. As a matter of fact, Grady had to give back $105 million. That was redistributed to the 61 rural hospitals, and then the 21 teaching hospitals were made whole relating to the direct payment plan. Remember we talked about that?
Mr.
So,
Chairman, I remember you saying that, something about that, but
okay.
doesn't that make sense? If we got more folks that we have to see about, that don't have any insurance whatsoever. And so if you got rural hospitals that need.
Yeah, so that money is used for hospitals, and you're correct. The other providers are not paid for through the direct payment plan, but that's not where the Indigent Care Trust Fund or disproportionate share goes.
You schooled me, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Johnson.
Senator Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, can you continue your education, or maybe the speaker does? So, right now, the Indigent Care Fund, I'm hearing trust fund has more money in it than it needs. But we're talking about a $4 million cut to that fund, and so my concern is what happens when that money is low. We might have we have a surplus of a lot of things right now.
But this is not related to taxes. Remember, this is related to the direct payment plan.
I don't know what that means.
All right, we'll circle back on that one. I'll catch up offline. But any other questions relating to that?
And this, I should mention too, this bill is working in concurrence with a appropriations request, and so that'll be something all of us will get an opportunity to vote on as well.
I know we will.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. Thank you for being with us today. I'm not sure that's a fairly obscure statement in relationship to a budget request. What does that mean, that the taxpayers are now going to fill in the hole that's left by ambulances not paying their license fees? I don't understand your last comment, but I mean, I'm sure that everybody that has the fee would like to bring a bill to not have to pay the fee anymore.
So
I don't understand.
So the only ones that are,
I don't understand any compelling case that's been made why
Well,
the fee should be lifted.
As I mentioned, I mean, for the better part of 20 years, they've been paying a fee which was ostensibly established for them to receive higher Medicaid reimbursement rates. We never held up our end of the bargain. It seems to stand to reason that it may be time for us to remove the fee altogether.
And it's my understanding the fee draws down matching federal funds.
Correct.
And I don't understand a reason for canceling these fees and having y'all not. I say y'all, I don't know if you're in the industry or not, but yeah. I didn't want to assume that at all.
Thank you, Senator. All right.
Thank you.
Senator Eccles.
Clarify something for me, and this may be that I'm new and don't quite understand this. Are county governments who have ambulances paying these fees, or is it private companies who have ambulances who are paying these fees?
Yeah, so this impacts both private and public.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Senator Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure y'all are aware that we've got areas all over the state that have shortages of ambulances, and you can't get ambulance transport because the companies can't stay in business and they don't have enough staff. So that's one big reason why we need to be somehow coming up with solutions for our first responders and our ambulance companies. Yeah.
We have one testimony. Anybody with further question? Yeah, Senator Hodges.
Representative Hilton, answer a question. I should know the answer to this, but when an ambulance picks up someone who doesn't have insurance or the ability to pay, what happens?
Well, I mean, you have unreimbursed expenses that, I mean,
that you're not getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions? The answer was you don't get reimbursed. Great, great. Mr. Mackey, do you mind? Mr. Mackey's the only one signed up, Georgia Association of EMS.
Yeah.
All righty.
Thank you for the opportunity. Josh Mackey with Georgia Association of EMS, representing the entire cross-section of the EMS industry in Georgia. I've dealt with this issue for roughly 17 years. As Representative Hilton mentioned, we've had this fee levied on us for over 20 years. It was only created in the first place to serve as a provider fee program for this industry. The only other fees in the ICTF currently existing that are similar are nursing home and hospital provider fees. Those fees exist and go directly to those industries. This fee goes to the ICTF in general. There are billions of dollars in the ICTF, so the amount that we're talking about is very minuscule. As Representative Hilton mentioned, the ICTF has not only run almost a decade surplus last year.
Indigent Care Trust Fund, just
Yeah.
for ICTF.
I apologize, I get too esoteric. Not only has it ran a surplus for nearly a decade, last year the surplus was greater than our entire line item. So even if there's a fiscal impact, we think it can be taken care of. We've provided information to the executive branch, to the legislature about how, if they're concerned about that, how that can be filled, what that average is. But the recent history is that I don't even think it's needed. But again, we've paid a fee for 20 years, haven't gotten the direct benefit. We have providers paying roughly just under $10,000 to mid six figures in this fee. I think it can help everybody. It's going to help an ambulance service in every single county, if not multiple ambulance services in a county.
I think that's an understatement. Any questions for Mr. Mackey? No questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll be happy to entertain a motion. Senator Eccles.
I'll make a motion to pass.
All right, made a motion to pass. We have a second. I'm going to take Senator Hodges. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand or left hand. That's good too. All right. All right. And all those against? All right. All right. It passes. Thank you. That's right, Senator Hilton. And did we get who's carrying this for you?
Yes, Senator.
Senator Kirkpatrick. Good deal. Good thing she voted for it, didn't it? There we go. All right. Thank you. All right. So House Bill 571. Oh, we got Senator Silcox again. All right. Yes.
Chairman, thank you for entertaining me again. And I bring to you House Bill 571 now. This is actually a department bill brought to us by the Georgia Department of Human Services. The LC number as it passed the House is 339396. And this bill, as we know, Alzheimer's is at a crisis level in our country, and Georgia is no exception. We have a lot of more cases every year. And this really addresses the Georgia Alzheimer's and Related Dementia State Plan Advisory Council. This bill says that, number one, the chairperson of the House Committee on Public Health, since we've changed the name of that committee in the House, we would just change it to Public Health instead of the Health Committee, would serve on the advisory council. Second, that the Georgia Alzheimer's and Related Dementias State Plan should be amended every 4 instead of every 3 years as it was previously, starting January 1st, 2027. And finally, number 3, starting January 1st, 2025, and every 4 years following, the advisory council should submit a midpoint report detailing the latest data showing the impact of dementia and progress toward goals in the state aging plan. So again, because of the increasing number of cases we have in Alzheimer's in the state, I think it's really important that we have an update every 2 years and a formal report every 4 years, and that's all this bill will do. So would appreciate your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Representative Silcox. Any questions for the author of the bill? Senator Orrock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to commend the author. We worked some years to put in place the mechanism to actually create a state plan. And states came online one by one. And it really stepped up our capacity to address this public health crisis by doing so. And we've had great staffing on the agency level, and I just want to applaud the effort, and we know we must put our shoulder to the wheel.
We do.
Continue to address this.
Thank you, Senator Orrock, for your kind remarks. My father-in-law passed away from Alzheimer's last summer, so this is a personal concern for me. Thank you so much.
Senator Jackson.
Mr. Chair, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion to pass.
Let me see if any other questions or concerns. None. So at the proper time is now.
I make a motion that we do pass HB 571, which is LC 339396.
Thank you. Second. Who did I hear? Chair Lady Leader Butler. Got the second. Let's do all ayes, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Who's carrying that bill?
Senator Kirkpatrick.
Senator Kirkpatrick
Thank
is
you.
got the. She seems surprised, but she's not balking there. Okay.
Thank you.
Any liking for good and welfare? Nothing for the good and welfare. Thank you, Senator Strickland. Yes, I am too. I thought you were Senator Bo Hatchett there for a second, but we're so happy. All righty. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.